The following broadcast is mandatory viewing for all citizens of the Totem Kitten Empire. Failure to watch this program will result in severe punishment.
On this episode of Big Burning Crap, we profile a squad of special operatives from the Empire's northernmost outpost as they prepare for a mandatory fire art training exercise in the Blackrock Desert. Will they succeed in their goal of creating a carnival made entirely out of fire? Come with us as we go behind the scenes and follow along in the construction of Risky Ball, a pyrotechnic twist on a classic Midway game. Francis the Fantastic, a feline fortune teller gifted with the power to see the future. Mirror Blaze, a labyrinthine inferno from which few have escaped, and more. Everything from Tetris to air hockey has been crammed with 100% of your daily recommended dose of fire. Can you handle the heat? Our journey begins when a wild Bostonian, a rare breed, known only as the fearless Leadericus, or more commonly, Seth, escaped the wilds of Boston and made the trek north, seeking fortune and glory.
I'm from Boston originally. I went to university in Worcester. I've been in Toronto for almost 8 years now. In 2010, the Flaming Lotus Girls brought a piece called The Angel of the Apocalypse to set up at Nathan Phillips Square. And when they came to town, they also did a flame effect workshop, and a number of people, myself included, took it. And then one person decided to organize a project called the Heart Machine. That was one of the first Site 3 projects, which was started around then as well. And the Heart Machine went to Burning Man, and that was the first Burning Man experience for a lot of people on our team, and it worked out really well. And then we did another project for Nuit Blanche after that, and that sort of set the wheels in motion.
Inspired by a fire art installation by a group called the Flaming Lotus Girls, the Seth felt a desire to shift from writing software and creating digital art into the realm of tactile physical art, specifically art that shoots fire.
I was one of the founders of another space called Hack Lab, and that was in Kensington Market at the time. They've since moved to a much bigger space. I couldn't use a laser cutter or power tools at home, but I could use it in a shop, and Hack Lab ended up becoming much more of a technology-focused space, so people on laptops writing software. So a couple people and I split off from Hack Lab in order to find a new space that would have enough space for heavy equipment and power tools and have a focus of art and technology and have everything be project-oriented. And that's how Site 3 was started. So I helped somebody work on a fire project for Nuit Blanche in 2011. It's 2011? No, it's 2010. It was a clone of a project done by Ardent Heavy Industries called 2PyR, which is a platform that you stand on, and there are 16, I think they're ultrasonic sensors in a circle around the edge of the ring, and you can move your hand over them, and it makes flame effects further out in those same locations go off. So after we had built it, I was thinking about, rather than using fixed place sensors, moving it to something on your hand so that you could have a compass sensor in it and point at them to set them off. So you could go like this or whatever, and then that turned into other gestures, and then that turned into doing the fireball. And we realized, okay, well, we've got this ring, we can get 2 people in the ring, And a friend of mine, she made a logo for Super Street Fire, and that just sort of meant like, okay, we got to do this now.
Hi there, folks. Welcome to the Site 3 Artist Collaboratory in Toronto, Canada. If you want to follow me inside, we'll talk to you a little bit about Super Street Fire, the project we're bringing to Burning Man this year. Follow me.
Super Street Fire is a reimagining of Street Fighter II, the classic video game, where instead of using a video game for it, we are going to be creating it out of fire.
Super Street Fire is designed to be a totally immersive experience for the player. They step onto these platforms and into a totally different world where they put on these incredible motion sensing gloves that allow them to send waves of fire back and forth at each other like they had superpowers.
It was an idea to take fire and come up with a way to manipulate it with your hands, but in a way that's both safe and fun.
Super Street Fire is this amazing compilation of computer game design, software engineering, carpentry, and pyrotechnics that we've put together to create this amazing spectacle that we want to put together here in Toronto, package up in a truck, and take down to Burning Man to give everybody an amazing experience.
So this is Site 3, our community workshop where we do a lot of the work for Super Street Fire. This is where we're going to be doing the plumbing work as well as the electronics, the software development, and all of the other parts that will come together to make this installation happen.
So the peripherals include things like gloves, the health meters, the countdown timer, and also the Game Master has an Android tablet, and that in itself is a client to this server as well.
Super Street Fire!
The Super Street Fire project was the entryway into fire art for many of the cult group's members.
I was talking to this friend I knew, and he asked me if I was going to Burning Man again, and I said I didn't get a ticket, and I was really disappointed. And he said, well, I'm involved with this art project that is being built out of Site 3, and we're having a meeting tomorrow night, you should come. And I thought, all right, I'll go to this meeting and maybe I can help and maybe I can meet someone who has an extra ticket that I could buy. And so really it was about a ticket, not about wanting to do art at all. I had no idea what I was getting myself into. And Seth said they needed a volunteer coordinator, and Rob's like, you should do this. And I said, I don't know what you're talking about. So he convinced me to go talk to Seth, and I went up to Seth very shyly after this meeting ended, and I said, I don't know what that job means, and I don't know what you need from me, and I don't know any of you, but I'm happy to help, so if you need a volunteer coordinator, I'll do it. And I was a terrible volunteer coordinator. I wound up getting a ticket, and that was the first time I went. 2012 was the first time I went with art, with a project, and that was it. I was kind of hooked.
Initially, it was me who got involved with Site 3 through Super Street Fire.
Okay.
And it was actually through the Hand-Eye Society in Toronto, the sort of indie game society. There was a post about Super Street Fire. Site 3 was looking for help for volunteers, and so I showed up to the first meeting. They were looking for somebody to do programming for it, and oh, I was a programmer, sure, I'll do that, and volunteered my time, built the first prototype and stuck with it, and yeah, I got into that scene, and I dragged Sara to it at some point.
I kept asking, he was telling me about it, and I said, this project sounds really, really cool, how can I get involved, and he knows my skill set, and he said, well,
yeah, they were looking
need a website.
They were looking for a designer.
Websites for a living at the time, and they needed design and writing. I'm got this weird skill set, so I showed up one day and said, hey, I want to design your site or write it out at least. So that's sort of how I got in.
I always wanted to go to Burning Man. That's kind of how it all started for me. So what I did was I looked at the Toronto Burning Man community. I looked them up online, and I found that they were holding town halls every month. I went to a town hall at Site 3, and they were in the middle of getting ready for Super Street Fire, which was one of the projects they were working on that year. I was blown away by it. So I was looking at the schematics for it after the meeting, and I was talking to a couple of different people. Chief among those was Seth, who was the project lead. And I said, this is the coolest thing. I can't believe you're building a live action version of Street Fighter 2. I love that game. And with fire, like how cool is that? How much cooler could it possibly be? And he says, well, we want some volunteers. Would you be interested in helping out? So I found out when the next meeting was going to be. I got on the mailing list for Super Street Fire, and the rest is kind of history.
I used to work at a digital advertising agency with some really close friends. And one of those friends, his name's Mick, and he was tossing around the idea of going to Burning Man. And then Mick kind of, he's like, hey, so I know these people, Sara and Callum, who live in my building, and they're on this big project called Super Street Fighter. And so, like, if there was ever a time to go, now is the time, because, we know people going, and we'll have a project to volunteer on, and, like, we'll have people there to kind of, show us the ropes. And so we volunteered on Super Street Fighter as perimeter shifts. And so 1 year passes, and again, like, Mick's like, hey, so he passed on that feedback, was like, would you like to go again, this time in, like, a more involved capacity? And I was like, yeah, okay, whatever, let's do it. So I met Mike on one of the builds, and he was goddamn adorable. And then I touched his penis, and then we've been together ever since.
In 2013, Site 3 Fire Arts, in collaboration with several other fire arts collectives, created a new Burning Man art installation, combining classic games with blasts of flame. This was called the Charcade.
Well, the weather's been hot, but it's nothing compared to what the creators of Risky Ball have been working with. Their latest project is for the annual Burning Man Festival, a celebration of fire and art in the Nevada desert. Debbie Lytle-Kwan has this story.
Armed with a burning desire to create
eclectic, nerdy in a good way.
They operate out of a laneway workshop called Site 3 Collaboratory. It's a place where the curious come to learn and build. Their latest project is called Risky Ball. This is just one of 10 sections they're building for the Burning Man Festival.
It's essentially a skee ball machine. When you roll the ball down the alley and it goes in one of the holes, it erupts fire.
There you go. The balls are naturally made of wood.
Gonna burn. They're gonna burn. They're gonna be scorched and singed.
Whichever target hole you get the ball in is gonna shoot cannonballs back out.
Everything about it begs the question, why?
Some people buy seasons tickets for hockey games, and we make things that explode in the desert.
Last year, the group took Super Street Fire to Burning Man, an annual celebration of art and expression in fire. It was such a big hit, they're bringing it back to the Nevada desert, along with Risky Ball. The two games will be part of the Charcade, or Fire Arcade. A small group will travel south to set up Risky Ball and its 50 fire effects.
I mean, obviously safety is a big concern. Yeah, absolutely. At the festival, they have a fire art safety team who come out and they do an inspection before they even allow you to light up the first time.
Speaking of first times, I just had to see what the fire fuss was all about.
See if I guess I can't taste it.
Debbie Lytle-Kwan, CBC News, Toronto.
The Charcade featured not only Super Street Fire, but Risky Ball, the Flamethrower Shooting Gallery, Dance Dance Immolation, Rock Inferno, Toxic Bloom, and Touch Me. Not literally, you sassy cat. I'm talking about Fire Simon.
One of the things we noticed when we were out at Burning Man with Super Street Fire is that fire art did not have a great platform to be shown. Like, even though Super Street Fire was 60 feet in diameter, which sounds massive, when you bring it out to the playa, it's like, whoop,
so
it's
tiny.
just this little tiny guy. We're like, where's the rest of it? Like, where did we lose half of it on the way here? It felt so small.
Yeah.
And we saw all sorts of other great projects. I think we saw Rock Inferno sort of buried off in one corner. There was a couple other fire projects, so we wanted to really build a platform that allowed these fire art projects to be shown on the right platform for it to get
when they're all together, it's
impressive.
It's very, very impressive.
Yeah.
I mean, they're all impressive in their own right, but
they're not being appreciated fully until
power in numbers.
Absolutely.
Right?
And there's not a lot of fire art groups anywhere. I mean, like we're probably one of the premier ones.
Yeah.
In Canada.
Much like Super Street Fire, the Charcade inspired even more pyro kittens to join the cult, the collective. But as the plague of kittens grew stronger, ambitions were also growing, and the primal urge to make an even bigger Burning Man fire art installation was undeniable.
The moth don't care when he sees the flame. He might get burned, but he's in the game. And once he's in, he can't go back. He'll beat his wings till he burns them black. No, the moth don't care when he sees the flame.
Big Burning Crap is brought to you in part by Science Coladas.
If you're not into
Don't you really want to know?
Hi, I was wondering who the father of my food baby was?
Alright, let's take a look. Uh-oh, it's the one that smokes but never burns.
Oh, could it be?
Yes, Smokin' Kitten. But you knew that.
I wasn't sure.
I don't know how. The food baby looks just like him. You are in denial. Call Francis the Fantastic now. $2.45 a minute. The first 5 minutes free. Must be 18 or older to call.
We had on Sunday.
Having decided that the Charcade simply wasn't impressive enough, Site 3 Fire Arts has decided to expand the premise of merging games with flame effects even further by adding more art and reimagining the project as the Charnival.
I'm told that Seth pitched this idea a while back. I remember first hearing it at Burning Man 2012 and thinking that was a good idea. We should do that. We were just inspired by the notion of a carnival, and we had done arcade, and so now, and for some reason, carnival made sense.
The early months of 2015 are spent in a rigorous routine of planning, building, and testing.
We'll bring Risky Ball back for sure. Really make the decor something incredible and really put our hearts into that. And then we're trying to think of more smaller pieces. This is what me and Sara are bouncing around right now. More smaller pieces that we can bring and we can also construct in the hackathons.
We'll probably be coordinating a whole bunch of hackathon projects because we have, at this point, upwards, I think, of 50 people between the 3 hackathons.
Awesome.
And most of them are saying that they are Charnival participants.
Fire arts collectives from all over North America are contributing projects. New talent is being harvested at hackathons, and everything has been set in motion.
I really enjoy fortune tellers like Zoltar from Coney Island. It's my favorite. Anytime we find one, there's a couple in Niagara Falls. I gotta give it money, and I need a fortune from it.
So I remember when Trish and I were coming back from our first Firefly, which is an event in Vermont, kind of like Burning Man. Over the course of this drive back, we kind of just threw a whole bunch of different ideas of how we could integrate a Rubens tube with a fortune teller, but then still have it be interactive. And, you know, we wanted people to have something to take away from it. So do we give them a fortune? How do we create the fortunes? It's a pretty involved process, actually, but we kind of hammered out the core concept pretty quickly on that drive home. And that kind of led into Frank, which is the flame effect that I built at the very first flame effects course I ever took. I was like, well, I can't just have an unnamed fire shooting machine. So I was like, I got to go with alliteration. So he needs to be like Furious Frank. So ever since then, you know, I had this flame effect called Frank. So when we were talking about this fortune teller, I was like, oh, we already have the flame effect that we can just grab and hook up pretty easily. It's Frank. I mean, maybe we upgrade him, you know? He's no longer bottom rung Frank. Now he's kind of hit the big time, so he's Francis, you know?
He's fancy now.
Felix, remember how hard we worked to get these lined up properly? Now we get to take them apart.
What are your thoughts on this setup today? I think it's going well. Yeah, you think it's going well too?
Charnival is going to be a destination. Charcade was somewhere you went to play a few games and then go on your way. Charnival, I think people are gonna stay and play and make it definitely a destination during their evening hours.
Originating in Toronto, a risky ball, Francis the Fantastic, fair hockey, pyrokinesis, mirror blaze, firearm wrestling, and a large amount of the project's infrastructure. Contributions outside the Site 3 Fire Arts banner include Fire Tetris from Meow Labs in Montreal, 2PyR from Ardent Industries, and the rebranded Flamethrower Shooting Gallery, now known as The Last Flamethrower, both hail from San Francisco. Flaming clown heads, known as Molotov et Immolato, a fire chandelier, word of the burning bramble, flaming hookers, and toxic bloom round out the roster of art from Boston, making the Charnival one of the biggest and most collaborative art installations in Burning Man history, spanning an entire continent. With mid-August as their deadline, the amount of time left for the members of Site 3 Fire Arts to build and test everything is steadily ticking down. Many a late night is spent at the makerspace, rewiring scoreboards, testing poofers, petting shrimp, and stroking beards.
So we're wiring together the scoreboards, the 7 segment displays for the scoreboards, and it's a very long and pretty tedious and repetitive job, and it's the kind of job that we do when we're working on stuff like this. This is when we're like, why did we do 10? Why did we decide to do 10 of them? Well,
Following Burning Man, several of the Site 3 fire artists will continue their tour to a maker exhibition called Beak Ahead in Calgary, where they will exhibit Risky Ball. Due to the time constraints, they must pass a TSSA inspection as a requirement for the Calgarian expedition prior to their departure for Burning Man. This is one of their final hurdles before they hit the road for the 5-week adventure. The inspection is a success. The desert awaits.
The sun. Now I'm gonna tell my mama that I'm a traveler. I'm gonna follow the sun.
Big Burning Crap is brought to you in part by Propane Rides.
Ask your doctor if propane rides are right for you. Potential side effects could include, but are not limited to, upset stomach, inability to eat turducken in all its many variants, propane fever, headache, nausea, a strong urge to move away to the backcountry and buy an elegant hot tub and sauna combo, night terrors, growing passion for awesome propane molecular tattoos, cold sweats, uncontrollable urge to Chapter 7 your friends, heart palpitations, a weird obsession with cubes, and a shameless love of black, 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 and sometimes red. Please consult your doctor or medical practitioner prior to use.
Wait, you got your call and then you guys just didn't show up.
No.
But no,
Yeah. Because we were too drunk.
17的在这个上面，这个要大概乘以3倍的样子。
你不说乘以2吗？
In the midst of a dust storm in the Black Rock Desert, a mixed group of Toten Kittens and Site 3 fire artists assemble the 10 lanes of Risky Ball. The environment is so harsh that everything takes twice as long to do, and there are ongoing setbacks. Wind keeps knocking over perimeter flagpoles. The heat of the sun has warped all of the wooden boards which comprise the Risky Ball lanes. It's grueling, difficult, unpleasant work. Horrible, depressing, god-awful work. The worst work the hardest work. Oh God, it still keeps me up at night. Sometimes when I fall asleep, I just see dust and propane tanks. Sweet Jesus, I can't take it anymore. The bull returns. The bull returns never worked. Ah! But back at camp, troop morale remains high. Time not spent building the Charnival is spent recreating, admiring art, or helping with side projects such as Splat's purple art car dubbed This Ain't Yo Disney Cheshire Cat. Day and night, the Charnival build goes on. It's a long week, but by the time the gates to Burning Man are open to the public, the Charnival has been assembled. It wouldn't be a proper Burning Man desert training exercise without a few casualties, however, and I am sad to report that in addition to a few bikes, our camera crew, Felix and Cynthia, are now gone. They disappeared, lost and adrift, into the hedonistic nightmare of the festival, and were never seen again. May their footage live on, and may they rest in peace.
We've not
Do you wish you had the hottest moves like this? Is rhythm your enemy? No matter your age or level of dustiness, learning the hottest new dance craze has never been easier. From the traditional long shippy and vertical swim dance, to the cunning impromptu cameo, to the more modern seated shoulder jive and rarely seen pants to hands trot, Dance Master Mike will teach you all the hottest moves.
And just like that, it was over. The training mission had been a success. After Burning Man, a select team from Site 3 Fire Arts continued on to the Beakerhead Arts and Science Exhibition to show Risky Ball in the grand city of Calgary. In the absence of my dedicated camera crew, may they rest in peace, I headed back to Toronto to assist in the unloading and storing of the Charnival art. The Charnival was a brutal and relentless experience. For many of the people involved, it was simultaneously one of the hardest, most taxing ordeals they had suffered, and yet also one of the coolest, most rewarding things they had ever done. Will they ever do it again? Time will tell. But in the distance, the sky is darkening.
Big Burning Crap was brought to you in part by the Big and Small Wrench Emporium.
If I had more money, I would buy property somewhere so that I could have a place to do semi-permanent installations and have people go anytime and work on things and not have to worry about setting it up, striking it, stuffing it in a box. Having a place where we could actually do longer term work and have more shop space to do it would be amazing. It's actually what I'm looking at now is I'm putting aside money rather than buying a ridiculously overpriced house in the city. I'm more interested in buying 100 acres somewhere 3 hours from here and using that as a place to keep going down this path.
By me, oh, stand by me, stand by me. It's the sky that we look upon should tumble and fall, or the mountain.
The space we're looking at right now is a 1,600 square foot large sort of pseudo-industrial space, really nice neighborhood by the railroad tracks. It's got a good vibe to it. Should be able to get a patio in there too.
It's a blank canvas with the right foundations.
Yeah, nice polished concrete floors. Looks like it'll be a pretty solid spot if we can nail it down.
By me, walk stand now. Stand by me, stand by.
For all the stress we go through to make these projects happen, for all the hard times, we all still just want to go get beers afterwards, and something keeps bringing us back. We drink Halo beer exclusively. It is delicious. You should drink it too.
We're not wedding people. I don't want to have a wedding. I don't want to wear a wedding dress. I think it's stupid.
Stand by me. Whenever you're in trouble, won't you stand by me? Oh, stand by.
Walks into this bar in Barnaby, BC, and goes up to the bartender, asks for a beer, and the bartender says, "I'm sorry, but we don't serve beer to bears and bars in Barnaby, BC. Beer to bears and bars in Barnaby, BC. Beer to bears and bars in Barnaby, BC. Beer to bears and bars in Barnaby, BC." What do you mean? I want a beer. Bears and bars to beer in Barnaby, BC. Bars to bears to beer to Barnaby, BC. What do you mean? I want a beer. 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 Bears. 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 I want a beer. Look, I'm sorry, but we don't serve no beer to bears in bars in Barnaby, BC. We don't serve beer to bears in bars in Barnaby, BC. And the bear gets all pissed off, looks around, sees kind of a skanky looking woman down at the end of the bar. The bear gets all pissed off, goes down to the end of the bar and just like devours the woman off the stool. And then he's like, "God damn it, give me my beer before I do something worse." And the barkeeper's like, "No, we don't serve beer to beers in bars in Barnaby, BC. And we certainly don't serve beer to bears on drugs." And then the bear's like, "What are you talking about? I'm not on drugs." Like, "What about that barbitch you just ate?" No.
Oh. Both of the times that we brought projects as Site 3 Fire Arts to Burning Man, the people that we have selected for our photographers and videographers have completely screwed up and not provided any useful or any photos or video whatsoever.